Hi! In this lesson, we're going to learn how to make Subway Surfers, which is a game where a character runs along train tracks and has to avoid being hit by trains. In the process of making this game, we're going to learn about solving visual problems using mathematical concepts. So let's dive in. So the first thing we're going to do is create the 3 lanes that our runner will be running on. So to create anything, you want to go to this gray plus button, and we're going to pull out a text object. Now we don't want to see this object in the project. All this object is going to do is paint the track lanes. So let's just press cancel here where it says set text. So let's paint our lanes. The way we're going to have this lane painted is we're going to start in the top and we're going to paint a thick, colorful line down the center of the screen. So drag your text object up to 500 by 750 if you can. Then add a new rule. And pick when the play button is tapped, which just means when the project starts. And to draw, we want to go to the drawing tab, which is the purple one, and open that up and pull out leave a trail. And this trail is going to be a random color for each lane, so tap random right there under the color blocks, and pick 150 for the width, so 150. And then we're not going to move forward, we're going to move down. So drag this red block off the editor and go to movement. And if you remember how to move down, it's change Y. Change Y moves up and down. Positive numbers in this bubble move up and negative numbers move down. So we want to move all the way down the height of the screen, which is roughly 800. So pick negative 800. Press check. And let's see what this looks like. Cool. And if you refresh, it'll be a different color. Every time you refresh, because it's random and not a specific color that you set out, you're going to have a different color every time. Okay, so we need one lane on the left of this and one lane on the right. So let's go back to edit. And let's group all this work we just did into an ability. So to do that, press on this gray plus button right here. And let's call this ability Draw a Lane. Press create. And drag this over here, and then drag this inside it. And then if you close that up, everything you just did will be one block that you can always access from right here. Now let's exit out of this rule, and remember you can do that by either tapping on this X or outside of this window. And let's make a new lane by adding a new object. So go back to this gray plus button and drag out another text object and put it at 350 by 750. And here, press cancel because we don't want to name this object either. And let's add a new rule. When the play button is tapped, and all you got to do is drag out that draw lane. Cool. And let's add one more lane. And let's make it 650 by 750. And don't name it. Add a new rule. When the play button is tapped, draw another lane. Cool, and let's see what this looks like. Great, so you might want to adjust the position a bit. I see that this left lane is a little too close and this right lane is a little too far. So all you got to do is move these so that they're aligned, and let's see if it looks good now. Cool, so sometimes you'll see a white lane, and on the white background it looks like there isn't a lane at all. Just remember that white is one of the random color choices. So just refresh. And cool, we have our background. Great. Now let's add our runner. So go back to edit, tap anywhere, and then tap the gray plus button and pick the character you want to be running on these subway tracks. And I'm going to pick Stargirl. So drag your character all the way around here, middle of the screen, bottom of the screen. And let's add our first rule to make our runner look like they're running. Okay, so I want her to be running the whole time. And I want that to start immediately. So I'm going to pick when the play button is tapped for the when. And now to simulate her running, I'm just going to have her turn back and forth. So to do that, go to movement, pull out a turn block, pick 10 degrees, press check. I'm going to wait 50 milliseconds. And I'm going to turn again the opposite way, so negative 10 degrees. And then I'm going to wait 50 milliseconds one more time. And then, if you do that, let's see what happens. She does it once, right? And that's not enough. We need her to do it all the time. So one more block we're going to add is repeat forever. So that's here in control flow. Pull that up to the top and drag the other 4 blocks inside it. Make sure to maintain the order that you had those blocks, because this is a sequence. Order is important. Now let's press play. And it looks like she's running. So now I want to add a function so that when I swipe left, she moves to the left lane, and if I swipe right, she moves to the right lane. So let's see if we can do that. So exit out of this rule. Let's add a new rule. When I swipe left on her, I want her to move to the left. Do you think you can figure out which when that is? Press more and go all the way down till you see is swiped left. And we're going to pick Stargirl. So the idea is that when I touch her and swipe left, she's going to move 150 pixels to the left. Now also there are other ways you can make her move, and if you remember how to do controls, like adding directional buttons, you could do that instead. So it's up to you. But this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to press check. And when I swipe left, I want her to move 150 pixels so that she's in the center of the left lane. So to move, as always, you go to the red tab, and to go left or right, you pick change x by. And to go left, you pick a negative number, because you're subtracting from her x coordinate. So we're going to pick negative 150. Press check, and let's see if it works. Swipe left. Cool. All right. Now let's do the other side. How do I swipe right to get her to move right? You add a new rule. You pick is swiped right, and pick Stargirl. Press check. Go to movement, and you pick change x. Now is this positive or negative? Positive. So positive 150. Now let's see if that works. Great. Okay, so there's one problem though, because if I do this, she keeps going, and I only want her to swipe if she's on the tracks, right? So this is a bug, and we need to debug it. So how are we going to do that? Go back to edit. The way we're going to do it is with conditionals, which you learned about in a previous lesson. So the way we're going to check, so how would you solve this problem? Cool, so she moves left if she swipes left. She moves right if you swipe her right. But there's a problem because I can keep swiping her to the right and she doesn't stop. Similarly, I can swipe her all the way to the left edge, and I only want her to go this far left and this far right. So we need to solve this bug somehow. Do you think you can figure out how to do that? Okay, so we're going to do it by adding conditionals, which you learned about in a previous lesson. So go back to edit, and let's go back to swipe left. And when Stargirl is swiped left, she will change x by negative 150 degrees. But we don't want that to always be true. We only want it to be true under certain conditions. So what would that condition be? It would be if she is to the right of a certain x position. So if you go to control flow, you drag out a check once if block, and you pick bigger than, we can compare how far to the right she is with a specific number. So if you go to values, you can find her x position, which tells us how far on the left-right axis she is. And then for the second bubble, we can pick 400. So drag this block into here. So this now means that you can only go in here if this is true, if she is further to the right than x equals 400. So let's see if that works. So I swipe left, and then I try again, and it doesn't work anymore. Great. Let's see if we can do it with the other side. So when Stargirl is swiped right, what do we need to be true in order for this to carry out? Go to control flow, pick check once if, pick smaller than, and then go to values to compare her x position, how far along she is on this axis, to a number smaller than 650 but bigger than 500. So I'm just going to pick 600. And drag this in, and now this means that she can be here and this will work. She can be here and this will work. If she's here, if she's greater than 600, then this block will not happen even if you swipe her right. So let's see if that works. Swipe. Oh, doesn't work. Swipe back. Doesn't work. Great. Okay, so now let's add our trains. So go back to Edit and exit out of here and pick the plus button. And now I'm going to use an emoji to get my train. So drag out a text object. So then you'll see this button. And I'm already at the train emoji, but if you're not, then go through until you find this tab with all the vehicles, and I'm going to pick this one. But again, you can pick any kind of obstacle you want. And press done. And the first thing I see off the bat is that it's too small. So I'm going to add a new rule. I'm going to go all the way up to when the play button is tapped, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make this emoji bigger. So to do that, go to Looks and Sounds, and drag out a Set Size block, and make it 400%. So now it's 4 times bigger than it normally is. And let's see what that looks like. Okay, that is a formidable train. I do not want to get hit by something like that. So now, let's look at the finished product to see what the train does during the actual game. So if you look at the finished product, you'll see that the train appears in one of 3 spots to begin with. It starts either in the left lane, the middle lane, or the right lane. And then it moves down the height of the screen. And then it shows up again in one of these 3 random spots and moves down again. So how can we write that in code? Here's a hint. We might need to use some math to get this to work. So pause the video here if you think you have a solution. So let's make a new rule for train. So go back to Edit, and let's go to Set Position, which is in Movement. Drag out Set Position. So because the train always starts at the top of the screen, where y equals 800, we know that the y, in this case, will always be 800. So press check there. But x is going to be different. It's going to be one of 3 things, right? And if we just picked random from 350 to 650, then it could be any number of spots in between those 2 numbers, and that's not what we want. We only want it to be one of 3 spots. We either want x to be 350, 500, or 650, and no other numbers. So one way to figure out how to write this is to go back and play with the project. Okay, so let's move Stargirl to the left lane. So when the runner is in the left lane, her x position is 350. If we swipe her once, she moves 150 pixels to the right and ends up at x equals 500. So 350 plus 150 times 1 swipe equals 500. And that's the middle lane. If we start at 350 again, and we swiped her twice, then she ends up at 650, which is the right lane. So 150 pixels each swipe. So 150 times 2 swipes plus 350, which is where we started, would equal 650, which is the x-coordinate of the right lane. Finally, if we didn't swipe her at all, then she would stay at 350. So there, 350 plus 0 swipes times 150 pixels stays at 350. So x equals 350 plus either 150 times 0, 150 times 1, or 150 times 2. So let's write that. So go back to when the play button is tapped, and go to the x position now. And first we want to add a plus button. And we start with 350 because you're never going to go any further left than that. Then for the second bubble, let's pick multiply and pick 150 because each lane is 150 pixels wide. Then for the third bubble, pick random. And our choices are either 0 swipes or 1 swipe or 2 swipes. So within the range from 0 to 2. Great. So now the last thing we need to do is move the train down. And the way to do that is to pull out a change y by block and pick -800. Finally, we don't want this to only happen once, we want it to happen all the time. And to do that, we repeat forever. So go to Control Flow, pull out a repeat forever block and put it right between the green block on the top and the red one underneath it, and then drag these 2 blocks inside repeat forever, maintaining the order. I know that was a lot, but let's see what it looks like. Cool. And now the train is picking randomly between the lane that starts at 350, 500, or 650. If this all seems a little complicated, that's okay. The best way to figure out a solution to a problem like this is to play around with the project and think about visual problems using numbers. And remember, this isn't the only way to solve this problem. Okay, so we have a working train, but I'm already noticing it's pretty fast. So go back to Edit, and I'm going to add one more block, and that's the set speed block. That you can find that under Movement, and all objects are 400 by default, so we're going to slow ours down to 300. Let's see if that's a little better. Cool. This feels more manageable. Okay. So now I want to make it so that when Stargirl bumps the train, we see the game end. And the way we can do that is we can add a rule to Stargirl. So add a new rule and pick the bumps when. And for our two bumpers, let's pick your runner and then go to the second bubble and pick the train. And here you can make whatever kind of animation you want, but we just need to indicate that our runner was hit by a train. So I'm going to go to Movement. I'm going to turn, 360 degrees. And then I'm going to set invisible, which you can find under Looks and Sounds. And to set something invisible, pick 100. And let's see what that looks like. So there's the train. I avoid it, but if I don't avoid it, whoa, she disappears. Awesome. Okay, go back to Edit. Now I want to keep score by making a timer that will increase so long as the game is played. So to do that, I'm going to add a new object. So tap on the plus button and pull out a text object. And this time, let's name it score. Now let's add a new rule. When the play button is tapped, we want score to be a number that keeps increasing. So to do that, we're going to use values, which we learned about in a previous lesson. So tap on values and pull out increase value. And let's tap on this gray arrow next to score. And now we're in the iPad's values. And let's add a new value by tapping on this button. And let's call this score. Press done. And tap on score. And it's already increasing by 1, which is what we want. And press check. And then let's have this object show the score. So go to Looks and Sounds and pull out Set Text. And let's set the text to the score. So go to Values and pick Score right here. And press check. And now this will only happen once. So what do we need to do to make it happen all the time? We need to repeat forever. So go down to Control Flow and pull out a Repeat Forever block and drag these two things into it. So what just happened? We're creating a value called score, which is just a holder for a number. And that number is going to increase every time this loops. So it's 1, then it's 2, then it's 3. And every time that happens, it also displays what that score is. So let's see what it looks like. Cool. So long as you're playing, this number keeps getting bigger. But what if Stargirl gets hit? Then we want this number to not go any higher. So then we need to adjust the code. So go back to Edit. And one cool way we can do that is with our when. Right now this score is increasing forever no matter what happens. But what if we made it only increase when you saw Stargirl? Because if you don't see Stargirl, that means that the game is over, right? So we can change our code a little by going to the when and dragging this off and picking equals, which is all the way down at the bottom of the when's menu. And then you could pick values and find Stargirl's values and pick invisibility as a %, and this is how visible she is. So if it's ever 100, then we know she's not visible. If it's ever 0, then we know she can be seen. So if we pick 0 here, then we're saying when Stargirl's invisibility is 0, you do this. But now we don't want this repeat forever anymore, because once this is initiated, it'll never stop. So let's drag these blocks off of it again and see if this works. So while she's playing, this increases, right? But if she stops, then it stops too. Isn't that cool? Okay, the last thing I'm going to do is add one more obstacle so that this is a little bit harder. So go back to your Objects menu and let's pull out another obstacle. So I'm going to go to Emoji and I want to pick the the guardrail. Press done. And now I want them to do the exact same thing the train did. So instead of writing all that code again, let's just go to the trains rule for a second, and let's group all of these blocks into one block. And the way you do that is by going to My Abilities and adding a new ability. And let's call it Train. Press Create, drag it over, and drag everything into this block. Close that up, and now we have one block that does everything the train does. Now if you go to the hurdle, add a new rule, pick when the play button is tapped, all you got to do is drag out train again, and now it'll do the same thing the train does. Finally, we need to make sure that when Stargirl hits the hurdle, that the same thing happens as when she hits the train. So go back to her and add one more rule, and find bumps, and pick Stargirl, and then for the second bubble, pick the hurdle, press check, and let's do the same thing again. She turns 360 degrees, and then she sets invisible. Cool. And now you have a fully working Subway Surfers game. And there you have it. You just made a working version of Subway Surfers. Now see if you can add to this project by adding more obstacles or a different background. Play around. Remember, coding is a creative process, so don't be afraid to explore as you add to this project.